Hello and welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for international business information. My name is Sarah Koh, and today our guest is Professor Andreas Hauskrecht. Now, Professor Hauskrecht is a clinical associate professor of business economics and public policy here at Indiana University Kelley School of Business. He has also held different international banking advisor positions on behalf of various German agencies, particularly concerning international economics and finance and banking services in Southeast Asia. Now, Professor Hauskrecht has authored numerous German and English scholarly publications discussing global financial partnerships and structures. And with the recent signing of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, a free trade agreement signed by 12 global countries, including the US, Japan, Mexico, and New Zealand, today Professor Hauskrecht will give us a closer look at what this trade deal entails for the US and other participating nations. Professor Hauskrecht, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, wonderful. So what exactly is Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the TPP? And maybe you could give us the story behind it from inception till the signing, which happened October 5th, 2015.
Story goes back to 2005, where actually the four starting members, we call them the P4, New Zealand, Chile, Brunei, and Singapore started this regional trade agreement of Pacific Rim countries. And at that time it was very small, but it got interesting, strategically interesting for other countries. And that started a process in 2008 where the United States realized strategically we should play a role in regional trade agreements. And now let me explain this a little better. As economists, we would always prefer having a worldwide solution, for example, under the WTO. For reasons that I will not explain in detail, WTO is not moving ahead. The so-called Doha round is almost dead, unfortunately, and it doesn't look like we can rejuvenate it soon. And so more and more regional trade agreements replace this overall World Trade Organization agreements, WTO solutions. And for the United States, there are currently two main regional trade agreements to be negotiated. The first one, as you said, the TPP, but also another one which is lagging behind, the Transatlantic Agreement on Trade and Investment. And now, in 2008, the Americans finally realized that they want to be part of this dynamics, and other countries join. Australia, for example, but interesting, Malaysia and Vietnam. So fast-growing economies in that region. Then, finally, also Canada and Mexico joined in 2012, and in 2013, Japan. So the beginning of this partnership is first strategic. And by adding more and more big economies, it becomes economically meaningful. And now it's one of the biggest regional trade agreements ever.
And I think you alluded greatly into this, but it looks like experts are really saying that TPP is one of the most comprehensive trade pacts that has ever lived in history. Now, it seems like you agree with this statement, so could you maybe expand a little bit more on that reason?
Particularly since Canada, Mexico, and Japan have joined. This is rough, so that those 12 countries stand for roughly 40% of world economic output, and more than 40% of American exports. So this is big and it is important. Now, be aware that the US has bilateral trade agreements or smaller regional trade agreements within the TTP, so we have NAFTA already. But still, there will be significant effects in the long run. As I mentioned, it has a strategic component and a more economic component. The strategic component is Southeast Asia is the growing region for the next 10, 20 years. It will not be Europe, it will be Southeast Asia. So it is important to be there. United States has a history of promoting international trade. So if you want to promote international trade, you want to have a level playing field. Level playing field regards labor standards and labor rights, environmental rights, intellectual property rights. And so the United States, since 2008, took a leading role to provide this level playing field, and also to a certain degree contain Chinese interest. The Chinese have very strongly pushed forward over the last years. Interestingly enough, China is not part of TPP, although we have new candidates. South Korea is one that might join relatively soon. So in short, yes, important economically because it's growing fast and it comprises different levels. Before I came here, I looked up just for fun Indiana's exposure to the TPP, and I would say Midwest Indiana, that cannot be that significant. More than 300,000 jobs of TPP countries in Indiana, more than 270 companies from TPP countries in the state of Indiana, 53% of all exports of Indiana going to TPP countries. So even our state, significance, importance. And it comprises, I mentioned already, a wide range, particularly also services, intellectual property rights, but also many, many other fields of economics. And we will see changes here to come soon. To be clear, this document is out since October 5th. Now it goes through the political process, and it will become effective, not before 2017. Numbers you will see probably 2018, 2019 earliest.
I think you highlighted some very good regional, local, and even domestic opportunities that the U.S. will go ahead and experience through this TPP gradually. So on the flip side of opportunities, what kind of challenges do you think the U.S. businesses and entrepreneurs could possibly face because of the TPP?
Let me first say the following. International trade agreements, and particularly trade agreements, regional trade agreements of that size, are increasing the welfare of the participating countries. There is absolutely no reason to dispute that. The problem is that international trade has also distributional effects. So while the cake is getting bigger, you produce winners and you produce losers. Now, it is not easy at all to tell you this will be the loser, this will be the winner. And I explain this a little better, if I may. TPP for the United States means that roughly 18,000 tariffs will be removed for American export industries. 18,000, look at this number. This comprises rice and beef tariffs in Japan. Will we be able to benefit from that? Maybe Australia will more benefit from that. We will have a removal of car tariffs. For example, Vietnam, 70% originally. Will we sell the cars to Vietnam? Will it be more the Japanese? I can't answer this yet. But we will have much more access to those markets. For the United States, I see the following significant sectors. Pharmaceuticals. So a key issue for pharmaceuticals is patent protection. And the United States originally were in the negotiations, was heading towards 12 years patent protection. We got 8 years out of it, which is not bad. Pharmaceutical companies will have more pricing power in those countries, and it will help them. State of Indiana is strong at pharmaceuticals and medical devices, and this will help for sure. Intellectual property right also is important, and also services. The United States is strong in high-skilled services. Think about financial services, accounting, legal services, insurance, IT at large, and these are sectors that will benefit. Who will lose? Difficult to say. Without being too unspecific, unskilled labor is losing. International trade is a substitute for labor migration. Instead that you have 100 million Chinese coming to the United States competing in the labor market with us, we buy Chinese goods that are produced with low skill. So in this sense, trade replaces labor migration and similar effects. Unskilled labor is certainly losing. Agriculture is difficult to say. other markets open up, will we be able to go into this niche? We have to see in a few years.
So I think you mentioned that we won't see real significant numbers of changes until 2017, 2018. So wrapping things up, what do you think the U.S. businesses and corporations could really do to gear up and prep themselves properly to benefit not only the country itself, but also the other participating members of TPP?
I would extend this question not only to the corporations, but also to the country at large. Economists would tell you, yes, it gets more competitive, globalization increases the pressure, but instead of closing your economy, instead of trying to fight globalization, you should try to make your people fit for this challenge. And for the United States, that means education, education, education. And training and retraining. That's so compensate the losers instead of interrupting the process. For corporate America, it means now really to reap the benefits, getting informed about which tariffs are decreasing, which new opportunities will show up. And I think there's a lot to learn. As I mentioned when we prepared for this talk, the document itself, released 2 days ago, no, yesterday released, has 6,000 pages. And I admit here that I haven't read them. But we will, and then we know better. So I will be, like entrepreneurs, studying more, and maybe we have another meeting where we can discuss where the opportunities exactly are.
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. Professor Hauskrecht, thank you so much for coming in and giving us your insights.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Well, that's all for this edition of Cyber Focus. Thank you for joining us. Now, if you have any comments or suggestions for future topics, go ahead and contact us at cyber, that's CIBER, @indiana.edu.